They went everywhere, everywhere. And I never questioned that. You can't just solve a crime sitting on your at your desk and hoping that things present itself. You got to get out and go find the evidence. And that's what we did.
Investigators in southeast Missouri searched near and far for their suspect following the 1998 murders of Sherry and Megan Shear, stopping at no expense to find their killer. But after so many years, cases can go cold. Leads dry up. Tips stop coming in. And when the DNA doesn't match, it just doesn't match. You move on to your next case, unless it's this case. No one moved on from the Shear case, put it on a shelf, or allowed it to go cold. And because of that, investigators would uncover huge leads over 2 decades that would ultimately drag a serial killer out of his grave and into the spotlight.
So what if it was just a drifter, and that's why nobody knows him?
You walk in and see what someone has done to them?
I don't know how we kept missing him. He just fell through every crack there was.
I'm just a firm believer that there's more cases out there.
My mother would leave for work and tell us, do not let him out of the house.
He doesn't always stick to the same weapons. He doesn't always do things the same way.
At the end of the day, it's for the girls. So you need to make damn sure you've got all the answers.
I'm Kathy Sweeney, and this is Chasing a Ghost, Chapter 3, The Case They Wouldn't Let Go. This episode contains references to murder, sexual assault, and suicide, and also contains descriptions of crime scenes that may be disturbing for some listeners. Please listen with care. On paper, authorities in New Madrid County, Missouri, had a physical description of the man who shot and killed a mother and daughter in March of 1998. It came from the woman he shot in Dyersburg, Tennessee, just a few hours after the murders. They were looking for a white male, 30 to 50 years old, with a small build, straight, medium-length graying hair and a graying mustache, possibly driving a maroon van. But the officers, deputies, and troopers who spent time inside the home of Sherry and Megan Shear that night knew more than that. They were looking for a monster. Retired Missouri State Highway Patrol investigator Don Wyndham collected critical evidence at the Shear crime scene.
It was obvious the target of this was Megan, the young girl. Not only was she assaulted and shot and just horrible, she was posed like he wanted to show what he had done.
The patrol took the lead on the Shear case, and Sergeant Bud Cooper ran the show.
We want to solve it. It's been tough on this whole community, the county, the family. I mean, it's one we really need to get solved.
Cooper speculated that their suspect, who tried to talk his way into a Dyersburg, Tennessee home shortly after killing Sherry and Megan, must have done the same thing outside their home in Portageville, Missouri.
Certainly you would think that there were similarities, that he's using some type of ruse to talk to Sherry and Megan, or they're separated and he pulls the gun on one or the other.
Working the Shear case alongside Bud Cooper, New Madrid County Sheriff's Deputy Chris Hensley.
Anybody that had a question about this case, or if there was a lead that was called in, it was always ran by Bud.
Hensley, Cooper, and the team got a host of new leads after the Shear case was featured on America's Most Wanted 2 months after the murders.
People would call in and they said that they seen the guy that matched the composite at an intersection in Pueblo, Colorado, and he was drinking a beer driving a green Lincoln. And I mean, we would go through and make sure there wasn't a green Lincoln linked to a murder, something out there.
And based on what happened inside the Shear home and the fact that their killer attacked a second family just hours later, the Southeast Missouri team felt strongly they were looking for a suspect who had killed before. I recently spoke to retired investigator Don Wyndham by phone about their suspicions.
You know, you just know as an investigator when you're working on these cases and you get to digging into that if it's not somebody right there local that knew her, it's more than likely good chance or good possibility that it's going to be a serial killer.
And they were right. But the serial killer they were searching for was starting to make some surprising mistakes. And in less than a year, they would lead to his undoing. As serial killers go, Robert Brashier must have thought he was good at what he did. By the spring of 1998, Brashier had female victims stretching from Texas to Missouri, over to Tennessee, and down to South Carolina. And yet, he was not on anyone's suspect list. He was a ghost, drifting in and out of communities, stealing lives, then disappearing. But as a regular criminal, Brashier was pushing his luck. He'd been arrested twice in 1998, both times in Greene County, Arkansas, where he was living with his family. In April, he drunkenly tried to break into his neighbor's house in Paragould with a loaded .22 and a video camera. He had already cut her phone line. But even with an attempted murder conviction out of Florida on his record, he did not seem dangerous enough to keep behind bars. The judge set his bond at $5,000, and he paid it. In August, Brashier was arrested again after a bizarre hit-and-run case in Greene County. The only details I can find about it come from an article in the local Paragould newspaper. I'll try to keep it simple. Basically, he crashed a van into a fence in a church parking lot and hit a parked vehicle at a nearby flea market. He got hurt, and when police caught up with him, he gave a false name and lied about what happened. When officers finally figured out who he was and how he really got hurt, they also learned Brashier had broken into his neighbor's house and stolen some cash and jewelry. That arrest caused Brashier's bond in the April case to be revoked. In October 1998, authorities in Arkansas issued a state warrant for his arrest. If he was worried about his freedom, though, Robert Brashier didn't show it. Instead, he hit the road. Brashier had decided it was time to go on the hunt for another victim in a new state.
So November 7th, 1998 basically started out like any other morning here in Lexington on 121 Malibu Drive at the Nixon Hearing Aid Center.
That's the voice of Lexington, Kentucky detective John Davis. On that Saturday morning around 7:40, a 911 call brought Lexington firefighters to the hearing aid business on Malibu Drive.
They were able to put out that fire, and then during the course of extinguishing that fire, they located a deceased female inside of the building.
The female victim was later identified as 43-year-old Linda Rutledge. Rutledge's parents owned the Nixon Hearing Aid Center, and she worked there. Police believe she was killed sometime Friday evening.
Linda's body was taken for autopsy. They found that she had sustained 2 gunshot wounds to the head and had also had some internal injuries consistent with some blunt force trauma.
Despite the damage done by the fire, Detective Davis said the original investigators were able to collect quite a bit of evidence from the scene.
There were door frames, door handles, fire debris. There was a whole bunch of stuff that was taken, but the most important items that they were able to recover, one of those was a single .380 spent shell casing. There was also 2 projectiles that they recovered, and then there was a sexual assault kit that they performed on Linda during the time of her autopsy.
2 days after Linda's murder, a second Arkansas warrant was issued for Robert Brashier's arrest. 5 days after Linda's murder, Brashier's missed a Greene County court date, triggering a third arrest warrant. Brashier's now had 8 known victims, women and young girls, in 4 different states. But no one was looking for Robert Brashier's the serial killer. They were looking for Robert Brashier's the career criminal who skipped a court date. Southeast Missouri investigators searching for a suspect in the murders of Sherry and Megan Shear felt strongly they could be dealing with a transient criminal, possibly even a serial killer. So when prolific murderer Tommy Lynn Sells suggested he may have killed the mother and daughter, a team of investigators made the trip to Texas to talk to him. In that group, Highway Patrol Sergeant Jeff Heath.
I recall Tommy being a serial killer, cold-blooded killer. He'd done a lot of things across the country. In my mind, he was trying to take credit for everything he could.
New Madrid County Deputy Chris Hensley also made the trip.
While we were interviewing him, he asked us if the kitchen would have had watermelon decor. We had been looking through, evidence photos, had been in that house. We couldn't even answer that question. We had to go outside, and we had all our evidence photos, and we looked through there, and lo and behold, the kitchen is done in watermelon decor. And, that really made us believe, at the time.
Did you ever find out how he knew that? Just a good guess?
Just a good guess.
Was he cleared by DNA?
Yes.
That trip to Texas was one of many taken during the Shear investigation. Former New Madrid County Sheriff Terry Stevens told me county leadership always supported the money Stevens and his department spent on travel tied to the case.
Every now and again, I'd get a question about, why are you spending this much money? But what price do you put on solving a crime? A homicide, a double homicide.
Retired Highway Patrol Captain Phil Gregory joined many of those road trips.
I personally probably have been in 8 or 10 different states, I would think, and the entire investigation, it would be difficult to put a number on, but I'm guessing 20-ish, something like that.
And as those investigators traveled from state to state looking for him, Robert Brashier was starting to feel the walls closing in. Not because anyone was close to catching him, because he was making too many mistakes. Brashier had left behind 5 living victims in Tennessee, 4 in Memphis at the scene of a violent 1997 sexual assault, and 1 in Dyersburg during that failed home invasion right after he killed the Shears. By late 1998, Brashier had numerous warrants out for his arrest, including a federal warrant now because the April case in Paragould, Arkansas involved a weapons charge. And when Paragould police arrested him, they took his .22 caliber revolver, the same make and model of weapon he used to kill Sherry and Megan. Former New Madrid County Captain Chris Hensley told me Paragould police had no idea what they had just collected.
Those officers at the time, they didn't know the details of the Shear homicide, and we weren't releasing the caliber of weapon.
But Robert Brashier would have known Paragould police had a key piece of evidence that could be used against him in a double murder case. So after Linda Rutledge's murder in Kentucky, Robert Brashier never really went back home. His daughter Deborah remembered him being gone for weeks at a time. When I talked to Deborah back in 2019, she described her mother trying to hide her father when he did see them.
We would go pick him up, and my mom would make a game out of it, and we'd carry a rug in. You know, we'd buy a new rug every time we went and picked him up and carry a rug in to where you couldn't see around him.
Brashiers also made a very telling decision in late fall 1998. He chose to write a suicide note. Based on its contents, the note was written sometime after November 22nd. That's when Deborah told me her grandfather, Dulis Brashiers, got out of the hospital after receiving treatment for cancer. Robert Brashiers mentioned his father's hospital stay in the short note. He folded that paper, wrote the words "to police" 3 times on the front, then stuck it in his shirt pocket.